Only thing left for us to do right now is to make sure that we're preparing our code properly for hosting and to actually host it. Part of that is running the automated test and making sure that everything is passing properly. So I'll switch over to my testing tab over here. I could also run it in my terminal, but let me start with this view right here. I'll run all the tests in the Wordle game. We're getting some checks over here. Looking good so far. All right, we're getting some errors. And this one's still running. All right, it also failed. So let's try to debug and understand what those errors actually mean. I'm gonna expand this section a little bit here. It says it was waiting for cell -0-0 and the element was not found. It was basically looking for this locator, nothing was found. Now, as you know, we've included all of our cells to include an R and a C right before the number. So because I technically like our way better, I like to have the R and a C, that way we know which one is which one is the row indicator or the row index and the column index. But since now we are trying to make those tests pass, technically you should not be updating your test unless you have control over your test. So what I'll do instead, I'll switch back to my main.js. We'll find everywhere where we were referring to something with the R and the C, and we'll update that. So when we created the cells, let's go ahead and remove those right here. All right, everywhere where I see an R and a C, I'll just go ahead and remove those. Here, thankfully here we used the data property, so we were not dependent on any actual ID numbers. Here we go. And let's save and see what we get now. I'll update or run the test again. Getting some more greens this time. Okay, we have one failure. This one takes a second here. And a second one. Let's see what is wrong here. So it looks like it was expecting the locator game result to have the string of game over. Instead, it got you lost. So here's what I need to update about my application. Find where did I do you lost, and I'll update that with game over because that's what my test was expecting. Now I don't need to run all of the tests. I can just run the one that we were that we had updated or corrected just now. So if I run this one test, now this may seem like it's taken a second. I'll show you in a second how you can actually keep an eye or understand why is it taking that long. But now we have one more test to fix. Once we fix that, I'll show you that. This was asking should handle incomplete word submission. So it looks like in the case of an incomplete submission, we were expected to shake the row, not just have the class of letter. So let's see, where did we have the incomplete row submissions? Right over here. So maybe instead of this alert, let's call shake row. And let's run our test one more time. There we go. All the tests are passing. Now, here's a tip that you might benefit from. If you expand this Playwright section a little bit, you can toggle this option on to show the browser. What happens here is that if I run my tests, it will actually open up a browser window for me. Here we go. And you can see that it's trying to test it out one test at a time. It's trying to see, okay, what happens if I provide a correct word, incorrect word, that sort of thing. And obviously for this particular one, it took a little bit longer because it was trying to test multiple scenarios here. And then it loads the application again, tries a different word. It must be waiting for something or testing for something, unless it was done. Okay, looks like it failed when we opened it in the browser. Did I not save the game over text? Looks like I did. Let's test it out. Over here, I'm gonna type in a wrong word. It's not a word. Okay, so we did get the game over text. So let's run the test one more time and see why is it not happy. We'll just run the one that failed. Okay, must be a one-off thing. Now it's working. Generally, I don't like to have the browser on, so I'll toggle this back off. So I'll save this, go back to my source control, and we'll add the commit message of fixed all tests. I'll commit it. I'm not gonna push it just yet. I'll switch over to my browser and I'll go to my repository right over here. So here's GitHub, IT3049C, Wordle, demo. Now I've technically set up the application with a whole bunch of things, including the scripts or the workflows that will actually execute the hosting for you. But what you need to do still is go into settings, make sure that you go to the pages section, and make sure that this is set up to have GitHub Actions. By default, it will be set for deploy from a branch. You want to switch that to GitHub Actions because we want to build the application using our Vite stuff first before it actually is able to host it on the internet. Now I'm ready to push, and we're now waiting for it to actually execute the hosting. If I'm back on the root of my repository, you'll see that this is the last commit that we just made. It's currently pending. If I click on that, it will show you that it's trying to work on deploying to GitHub Pages. You could also open it in Actions. You'll see that last one that is currently working. If I click on that, it will show you all the steps that it's trying to execute. First, it checks out the code, sets up Node.js so that it's able to install the dependencies, which is what it's trying to do right now. Once that is done, it's actually gonna try to run the tests, and if all the tests pass, then it will build the project and then deploys it to GitHub Pages. We'll give that a second here. Now it's running the tests. Hopefully they all pass, including that annoying one that was kind of inconsistent. Oh, looks like it did fail. 2 errors were not part of any tests. See above the details. Okay, let's see what happened here. Let's just try to run it again and see what happens. Rerun the job, rerun the failed job. Yep, this is the one. And while that's happening, let me try to run the tests over here one more time, just so I'm 100% sure that everything is consistent and it's running fine. Looks like there's an issue with this game over every time. Let me see. How can we make sure that this is always working? So let's look at the actual test, just so we understand what is it that it was trying to do. So you went on the page, it waited for until at least one character or one box or one tile was showing. I don't want it to actually try to execute any sort of API calls. I want this to be a little bit faster. So I am mocking that request. So whenever any call goes out to this API, it's just gonna replace it with the word zebra. Then it will also mock this request here. So it returns an array, which is a successful return, which is basically what my code is currently expecting, that if we get a status code of 200, that means we did not fail that request and that that word exists in the dictionary. Then it reloads the page, and then it types this word, this wrong word, because the correct word to be guessed is zebra, but it's trying to type hello 6 times. It is waiting for the animation, and it's waiting for 1700. Let's see, what is 1700? If we divide that by how many characters we have, that should be around 340 milliseconds each. Let me go back and see where are we adding our animation here. So there's 300 milliseconds between each tile on the reveal. So if we were to wait, let's make this 350 for now, and let's see what happens when we run the test again. Right, so when I updated the delay, that seemed to have worked. Let me try a couple more times. It could be another one-off situation where it may not be actually done. So let's see. Okay, looks like it failed the test one more time. This might be it. Increased the delay between animation. Go back to my source control, paste it in there, And I'll fix the typo. Commit and push. Come back over here, go to actions. This is the commit we just made. And let's see if that works this time. Moment of truth. It's gonna run the test one more time. Still failed. Am I getting the same result if I run it in the terminal? Let's go ahead and find out. Here's my terminal. npm run test. So it works over there. So let me try one more thing here. I'll switch over to my code, and what I'm guessing could be the issue, because it seems like it's timing out after 20 seconds. There are tests that looks like they are taking more than 20 seconds to execute, but our code is ending or trying to end before that. So I'll update my Playwright config for the timeout, and I'll increase that from 20 to, let's say, 60 seconds. And let's see if that fixes my issue here. Increased the timeout for Playwright. We'll push and let's see what we get. I'll switch back to GitHub Actions. Here's the last commit. Alright, awesome. Looks like it was able to deploy. So all it needed just some extra time to actually execute the test. So everything was good over there. Now let me go back to our repository and let me see if the hosting was actually done and executed properly. So if I go back to the repository, and I should go under settings, let me increase that actually. I'll go under settings, under pages, and there should be the URL for our hosted thing. Let's see, why did this not pick up? I think I know what just happened. So actually I want you to go to settings, go to pages, and change that to deploy from a branch, and that branch is gonna be the GH pages. Let's see what happens now. Yep, so we update this to use this branch as the hosting source. It's gonna try to trigger it one more time. So what actually happens in those deployment workflows is that we are building the application and putting the build version of it in another branch called GH pages or GitHub pages. That's the version that we want to be deploying, and that's the one that we want to configure our GitHub actions to listen to. So now if I go back over here, refresh, here we go, we technically have the game. There are things that are missing. Yeah, I think I just need to include something in the workflows, and that will hopefully fix it. Let me go back here. Look at this file. Here are the assets. They're here. They're just not included correctly because pretty certain this is gonna be looking for. So you see that? That's where the problem is. It's looking for the wrong path. That's why it's not able to find those files here. So I'm gonna have to go back and update my Vite settings such that it deploys it. There we go. I'll have to update this, and you hopefully would not run into this situation right over here. So I just updated that to a relative path, and since I was here, I decided to also delete the duplicate workflow, and now I can push them both with deployment fix push. Let me just stop all the other ones over here, since I really only care for the last one that we just did. Once this is done, if I scroll back up, you'll find another GitHub action that kicks in to actually deploy. What that does is that it listens on the GH pages branch, and whenever an update happens to that one, it goes ahead and deploys that one instead. So let's see, this is now done. If I go back to my application and refresh, here we go. Now we have our game. Everything is back. We have our pulsating header over here, and we're able to start guessing our words. So if I guess the correct word here, here we go. We win on the first trial. That was real.